Avoiding any criticism of Trump during the campaign, last night, Senator Cassidy took some not-so-subtle swipes at the president who cost him his re-election.
When you participate in democracy, sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you want it to. But you don't pout, you don't whine, you don't claim that the election was stolen.
Well, another one down. 2 out of the 7 senators who voted to impeach Donald Trump remain. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and the president continues to rewrite the history of January 6th.
It all goes back to that all the time. Yeah. I think the thing for me is these primaries are going to happen. Trump's going to weigh in. This has happened before, 2022 and 2024. But at the end of the day, the question is always candidate quality for the general, right? Like, they're not going to have issues in Louisiana, probably, these Republicans. But in other states, right, that are a little bit more purple, him dilly-dallying in the primary, Republican strategists are always much more nervous about him doing that in those states.
Well, I mean, Louisiana is red, which makes me think of Texas, which is maybe a smidge less red. But let's not forget, Senator John Cornyn is probably looking at what happened last night in Louisiana and is probably chewing his fingers down to a nub because he is still waiting for President Trump to endorse him over Ken Paxton in the Texas Senate primary. And we just saw this week Senator Cornyn saying that some highway in Texas should be renamed the President Donald J. Trump Highway. He's doing everything he can to get the president's endorsement. And if I were him, I should have, you know what? I should have saved this for my 3 things. 3 hours from now.
This was one going to be.
No, it wasn't. It's something else. I'm not going to give it away. But Senator Cornyn, give us a call. Let us know how you're feeling right now about what happened in Louisiana.
And really quickly, the loyalty, Republicans continue to forget that loyalty is a one-way street for Donald Trump. Like, even after he is losing his job, Senator Cassidy is still being, like, not saying Donald Trump's name, not going ham, not letting loose on his frustrations and he says behind the scenes about Donald Trump. And it's just like, guys, you lost the job. You might as well.
What's that? Say my name. Say my name. What was the group?
Destiny's Child.
Destiny's Child. Come on, Senator.
Say his
Cassidy, say his name.
If we are talking about candidate quality, Paxton is no Julia Letlow, who is actually a high-quality candidate and might explain the point spread and just how well she did last night. She's someone with a compelling backstory who is a well-liked member of the House. She does not have the kind of baggage that Ken Paxton has. So
who does?
Anyways, let's go to Baton Rouge. Joining us now live with the latest, MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell. Michael, what happened last night?
Yeah, Jackie, in a way, the results were surprising, but in a way, they weren't surprising at all. Surprising because we're talking about Bill Cassidy here. He's a 12-year veteran of the Senate. He's a pretty high-ranking member of the Senate Republican Conference. He is chairman of the Senate Help Committee, which has key jurisdiction over a number of key agencies. But in another way, it wasn't surprising at all. We had seen that President Trump's grip on the party was still strong in those Indiana Senate races. And there was a question of, well, was that maybe a niche issue? It was redistricting. It was something that a lot of local folks were really into. But could the same thing translate to more of a national story where the problems with the candidate were more amorphous, right? It was just that President Trump didn't like Bill Cassidy for a number of reasons. It wasn't pitted in real policy. And the voters showed last night that, that is still enough to enrage the base and to remove someone who the president's not a fan of. I mean, Julia Letlow, she is well liked among her Republican colleagues, but she still is a bit of a political newcomer, right? She only came to Congress back in 2021. John Fleming, a former member of Congress, he was the founding member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus. He served with President Trump, but in no way has that high name ID like Bill Cassidy has. But at the end of the day, it just didn't matter. And look, we had been hearing from voters throughout the day who said that they were voting for Julia Letlow because President Trump had endorsed her. That really seems like it came down to it for a lot of folks. What I found that was most fascinating, though, was that for months, especially in the past few weeks, Bill Cassidy's been walking this extremely fine line when it came to Donald Trump, because you'd think that he's hated by Donald Trump, and he wasn't shy to say that So he'd maybe avoid talking about the president, but instead Bill Cassidy, recognizing that Louisiana is so red, recognizing that the state went for President Trump in all 3 previous presidential elections, he leaned into it, saying, well, the guy may not like me personally, but we've worked together legislatively. We've gotten a lot done. At the end of the day, that policy argument just didn't matter. And as you saw in that clip you just played, it all came back to January 6th for Bill Cassidy, him saying that, you know, when you lose an election, you don't make up excuses. The tear, the rupture that began and essentially set into motion his ouster last night was that vote to convict President Trump following his insurrection. Bill Cassidy also touched on these personal attacks that have become so normalized in today's Republican politics and politics at large. He touched on that right after President Trump had unloaded on him on Truth Social. Take a listen to what he said.
I'm also asked if I am bothered by being attacked on the internet. Insults only bother me if they come from somebody of character and integrity.